On today's video, we'll talk about what used to be Brian May's favorite album for the longest time, the second album on this legacy of jewels, aptly named Queen 2 or Queen II. So hello everybody and welcome to a new video and welcome to my channel where we talk about everything music from death metal to Queen and everything in between. This video is of course part of the Queen Chronicles series and we're moving along in chronological order. If you want to check out the previous videos where we talked about Queen's amazing debut album and more, I'll leave a link to the playlist in the description box below. Go check it out. Alright, so Queen 2, arguably Queen's heaviest album, was released on March 8th, 1974 by EMI in the US and Elektra in the UK. This album was a very different album from its predecessor. While Queen played their first gig in June 1970, Still a Smile, and their first gig as Queen in July of the same year, they actually played a lot of songs that would eventually make it to the first release, which took 2 years to actually record. During those 2 years, they actually evolved as a band and they came up with a lot of more complex arrangements, but they decided to put off the recording of those songs so they could make it to their next album, Queen 2. So even though this album came out in 1974, 4 of the songs on this album were already included in their set list as early as 1972, and 2 of the songs on this album were leftovers from previous bands like Smile and Wreckage, Freddie Mercury's previous band. Having more experience and a bigger budget this time around, Queen really went at it with massive track layering and guitar harmonies and orchestrations, really giving listeners a peek of the direction the band was heading into. Often referred to as a concept album, it was divided into 2 very distinctive sides, Side White and Side Black, as opposed to Side A and Side B, the conventional names for them. Side White, or Side A, was written entirely by Brian May except for track 5, and Side B was entirely written by Freddie Mercury. Now let's talk about the iconic album cover. Is there really a more iconic band picture out there? I don't think so. Taken from a publicity shot in November 3rd, 1973 by the legendary rock photographer, the man who shot the 70s, Mick Rock, it was used as this album's cover and reissued throughout Queen's career, more famously on the music videos for Bohemian Rhapsody and One Vision. Now let's get into the music. This album is 40 minutes and 42 seconds of awesome, pure awesome. Well, most of it is anyway. I'll tell you about that later. It was produced by Roy Thomas Baker with additional production by Robin Joffrey Cable and Queen, engineered by Mike Stone at Trident Studios at London. Virtuoso castanets by Roy Thomas Baker, and nobody plays synthesizers again. That was a big deal back then. Recording all those noises with no synthesizers was ridiculous. Anyway, let's get into the music and let's start at the beginning with Procession by Brian May. But before we get to that, if you enjoy the content and you want to help the channel grow, please drop me a like, drop me a comment in the comment section down below to help me out with the YouTube algorithm. And definitely, if you want to see more content like this, please consider becoming a patron to the channel. A little goes a long way and we surely do appreciate it. On with the show. Right off the bat, we hear Brian May's red special guitar going into this tiny amplifier that John Deacon had made, the Dickey, and this very distinctive guitar sound that we all know and love. This is an awesome instrumental guitar-only funeral march with a lot of guitar layerings. A very dark and doomy guitar track that I think is written in D minor that fades into the next song at only 1 minute and 12 seconds. And so we get into Father to Son, also by Brian May. This is quite a heavy song with great lyrics and a great vocal performance. A very progressive song with guitar harmonies throughout the 2 verses and a very heavy bridge before the head-banging solo. Right after the solo, it moves into a softer section where Brian May also plays the piano, and then it resolves into the final chorus, which repeats itself a few times with a guitar solo that's playing in the background while it transitions into the next song, White Queen, as it began. Song number 3 on this album. Also by Brian May, this is a progressive ballad with beautiful verses that revolve around an A minor arpeggio and an F major and a heavy chorus. It modulates into the key of A major right before the acoustic solo, where it modulates back to A minor. And this is the first time we hear this very particular acoustic guitar that we're going to hear throughout Queen's career. Apparently, they had a bad bridge that was fixed poorly, and that resulted on a very sitar-like sound because the strings were hitting the frets at the wrong angles. So it created a very distinctive sitar-like sound that was very expressive and that was featured on a lot of Queen records. After the acoustic guitar solo, we get into this beautifully arranged electric guitar solo and then back to a final chorus, and that's where the song wraps up. Now this song is simply amazing. It's one of my favorite songs in the Queen catalog, and it was also one of the high points on the live set back then because it features sort of an impromptu arrangement of piano and guitar that was just simply beautiful. Awesome song, one of my favorites. And now we get to track number 4, Someday, One Day, also written by Brian May, and it actually features Brian May as the lead vocalist. This is the first time Brian takes over as the lead vocalist on Queen's discography, and he does a great job at setting the mood on this soft track. There's also a lot of guitar harmonies which are typical on Brian May's later work. And thus we get to track number 5, the last song on side White, the only song that wasn't written by Brian May. This is The Loser in the End by Roger Taylor. This is a simple, straightforward song, with Roger Taylor taking over as the lead vocalist again. He had done it before on Modern Times Rock and Roll on the Queen debut album, and he does a great job as a vocalist. It is a good thing that this is the last song on side A because it doesn't really fit in with the other songs. It would have definitely felt out of place had it been anywhere else in the album. Now we flip the record over to side B, or side Black. From now on, every song on side B is going to be written by Freddie Mercury. The first song here is Ogre Battle, which is a proto-thrash song with a lot of thrash metal elements, but it's not quite the first thrash metal song in my book anyway. We'll have to wait a little bit for that one. But it's a heavy song nonetheless. This song was actually written by Freddie Mercury for his previous band Wreckage, and he actually wrote it on guitar. And even though Queen had been playing it since as early as 1971, they had to wait for it to be properly recorded. Next up is the very progressive and pompous The Fairy Fellas Master Stroke, inspired by Richard Dadd's painting by the same name. This song too is a work of art. Referred to as Queen's biggest stereo experiment by Roger Taylor himself, this song is fast-paced with a lot of layers and panning and intricate arrangements. You had Freddie on a harpsichord and even Roy Thomas Baker playing virtuoso castanets on this record. This song proves how criminally underrated John Deacon is as a bass player. This song blends beautifully into the next track, Nevermore, the shortest song on the Black side at 1 minute and 17 seconds. Second shortest on the album because we had Procession and 112. This awesome ballad, inspired by Alan Poe's The Raven, talks about feelings after a breakup. Cool little ballad that leads into the next song on the album, The March of the Black Queen, the most ambitious song on this album, and one of the best in all of Queen's catalog. Freddie Mercury actually started working on the song before even joining Brian May and Roger Taylor. This monstrosity of a song is definitely one of Queen's finest works. An obvious predecessor to Bohemian Rhapsody, the song was way over the top. According to Roger Taylor, they had recorded so many overdubs and layers onto the song that the tape had nearly become transparent, which is often confused with Bohemian Rhapsody, because somebody said that Roger Taylor said the same thing about Bohemian Rhapsody, but he was actually referring to this song. Due to the sheer complexity of this song, it was never played live on its entirety. But the heavy part was often played as part of a medley, which was really cool. With verses revolving an A minor riff with a descending chromatic bass line, a slow bridge, a heavy metal riff, a fake outro, 2 guitar solos, and an outro that blends into the next track, this song has it all. Just like Bohemian Rhapsody, it also features polymeter, or polyrhythm, which I'm gonna get a little technical here, but it's the use of 2 different time signatures simultaneously, 8/8 and 12/8 on this case, making it a very complex song to both compose and perform. Song number 10 is Funny How Love Is. This song was written by Freddie Mercury in the studio, and I think it kinda shows. It's a very simple song with simple lyrics, but it was never performed live due to it being very challenging to sing because it stays on the very upper range of Freddie's vocals throughout the whole song. This takes us to the last song on the album and the very first hit Queen ever had, 7 Seas of Rye. Freddie actually started working on this song in his Wreckage days as far back as 1969, and we got a small instrumental hint of this song on Queen's debut album as the last song on that album, as the intention was that this song was going to be the first song on this album, giving that a sense of continuity if you wanted to listen to the albums back to back. But because Queen, the album, was kind of a flop, they actually engineered this song to be a hit. They took no chances and gave people what they wanted back then. An iconic intro riff that developed into a song very quickly, as opposed to a song that took too long to happen, like Keep Yourself Alive. The song and the album end with a rendition of I Do Like to Be Beside the Seaside, which is sung at the end of 7 Seas of Rye, wrapping up this masterpiece of an album and Water Ride. Worth mentioning is the fact that the first copy I owned of this album was this 1991 Hollywood's Record CD, which includes See What a Fool I've Been as a bonus track, which was the B-side to the 7 Seas of Rye single. That song was written by Brian May, and it reminds me of Led Zeppelin a lot. It was actually a Smile song, and it was actually played live by Smile before Queen was born. I find it funny that both songs that were released on the single for this album were songs that were not actually written for Queen, but belonged to their previous bands. Anyway, Queen 2, amazing album, one of their best, hands down, pushing all the studio boundaries to their very limits. I can't really choose my favorite song from this album, but it would have to be one of the Queens, either White Queen as it began, or the March of the Black Queen. One from the white side, one from the black side. That's not that bad, right? Now for the least favorite song on the album, that one's easier. It would have to be Funny How Love Is. Although, you know, the loser in the end could actually be a close second. I mean, that one feels a lot more out of place. Anyway guys, I really hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you made it this far, don't forget to subscribe to this channel like a man. Let me know in the comments if you ever listened to this album on its entirety, and tell me which one is your favorite song and which is your least favorite song. I am really curious to know. And if you want to help the channel grow and see more content like this, please consider becoming a patron to the channel. A little goes a long way, and we surely do appreciate it. I'll leave a link in the description box below. I'll see you guys next time. Pat out, metal on, dudes. Queen rules.